If everyone could please take their seats. So everyone could please take their seats. I'd like to call the meeting of the Wayne County Commission to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
The board is now open for roll call. Vice Chair Palomero has requested an excuse. You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reminder to turn all of your phones onto silent. I just did for mine. Next item, please.
Invocation.
Thank you so much. I'd like to have Commissioner Ray Basham come up for our invocation for this morning.
I'd like to introduce our invocator. Oh, that would be me. Okay. Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Could we bow with me, please? Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessing of another day and for the opportunity to gather together in our work on behalf of the residents of Wayne County. We humbly ask for your guidance and your direction as decisions are made in service to your people. Instill in this body a spirit of patience, wisdom, and humility in things we pray. Amen.
Amen. Next item, please.
Reading, correcting, and approval of the journal.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Ware.
Move approval.
Is there support? Moved and supported. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item.
Report from the chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Palomero is not here today because of the funeral of Trenton Mayor Kyle Stack, and we'll hear more on her wonderful life during memoriams. But I wanted to also let you know that at 12 o'clock today, we have a senior and veterans committee meeting chaired by Commissioner Martha Scott. And just for the audience, today we have our full board meeting. And as many of you know, during our full board meetings, when we dispose of the items that were discussed during our committee meetings. We have committee meetings on last week and the week before, and even one this week. But all of those items are taking a deeper dive by our commissioners, by staff, to go over all the items, and then during our full boards when we come to dispose of those items in a formal way. So that's what we'll be doing today. We won't be having deep discussions because we did that in all of our committee meetings, but of course, all commissioners are not on all committees. Therefore, there are questions always that come about based on the paperwork and based on the information that we have. But that's how we will proceed for today. Next item.
Unfinished business. There is none listed. We are moving to offering of all petitions, ordinances, resolutions, and presentations. There are none listed. We are moving to reports from committees. We are going to start with Report B, and that's on page 7. Report B is from the Committee on Ways and Means. There are 10 items listed on pages 7 through 10 of the agenda.
Commissioner Varga.
Thank you. Move approval of the entire committee report.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any discussion on any of the items for the Ways and Means Committee? Discussion on any of the items on the Ways and Means Committee? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item.
We are on Report C from the Committee on Health and Human Services. There are 2 items listed.
Commissioner Killeen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee considered 2 items, and we're unanimously approved them and moving them here today for full approval, so I move those 2 items.
Support.
Moved and supported. Are there any discussion on the 2 items on the Health and Human Services report? Any discussion on the Health and Human Services report? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Next item.
We are on Report D from the Committee on Public Safety, Judiciary, and Homeland Security. There are 3 items listed.
Commissioner Clark Holman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval of items 1 through 3.
Support.
Moved and supported. Discussion. One discussion on the first item for the grant for the sexual assault kits. Is there someone here from the prosecutor's office to speak to this?
Good morning. Tony Guerrero, Chief of Legislation, Grants and Community Affairs for Prosecutor's Office.
Thank you, Tony.
This is a $1 million grant. We appreciate the fact that exigent approval was granted. Otherwise, we would have lost the $1 million. This will provide funding for the sexual assault kit prosecutors, and to the best of my understanding from reviewing the grant, we should be able to add 2 more persons to that initiative. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners may have.
Thank you. You know, this is very important, continuing to make sure that we have staff in place for the prosecution of sexual assaults. And of course, with the rape kits, we've done an outstanding job, and the prosecutor has been the lead throughout the country with how she's handled the rape kits, and I'm happy that the commission was able to fund that. So this is $1 million for a grant for our sexual assault kits for at least 2 prosecutors to work in the office to that end. Any discussion?
It'll actually be 5 total.
5 total, fantastic, thank you.
Prosecutor Worthy wants to thank the commission because due to the support that we have obtained from the commission on these grants, this initiative has become a national model. So you are to be congratulated. Thank you.
Thank you. Until the prosecutor, we thank her as well.
And happy birthday to her.
Yes,
Yes, and it is her birthday
and today
today.
is her birthday. Thank you, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Killeen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question on item 3, the Justice Assistant Grants. In previous years, Harper Woods has been a recipient of this, and I see it's been zeroed out this year. Is there a reason why Harper Woods is not participating in this grant?
Good morning, Sumaya Harb, Director of Administration at the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office, we don't have any control on who gets portion of the grant. It's put together by the Department of Justice. They're the ones who receive the crime stats from the various communities, and accordingly, they would portion a piece to the police department.
Okay.
Apparently, their crime stats must have gone down. That's why they're not
Well,
one of the
hopefully that's a
recipients.
good sign, but this
Absolutely.
is established by the feds and
Yes.
their data.
Absolutely.
We got
correct.
nothing to do
Yes.
with it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other discussion on the public safety report? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item.
We are on page 12 of the agenda, Report E from the Committee on Government Operations. There are 5 items listed.
Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move 1, 2, and 5 for receive and file, and items 3 and 4 for approval.
Is there support?
Support.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question of someone on the legal from the Corp Counsel. This firm, is it a division of a former larger firm? Because I remember in the past there were some additional names in that firm.
Good morning.
August, I think. and-
Cheryl Jordan, Deputy Corporation Counsel. One of the main partners of the former Zausmer, August, and Caldwell firm has left the firm. So they've restructured, and now it's just called Zausmer PC.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any additional questions on the government operations report?
Item 4.
Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item.
We will return to page 2 of the agenda, Report A from the Committee on Public Services. There are 21 items listed on pages 2 through 7 of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. On the 26th of November, we had a very good and well-attended public services meeting where over 40 people gave comments on the mills and the proposed sale of the mills. It was good dialogue, good conversation, good. It was great to see commissioners there at the meeting who are not on the committees. They had an opportunity to ask questions as well. Today, I would like to, before we get to the actual committee report, Commissioner Recchi, I'd like to ask 3 people to speak, and they've already been identified to speak for 3 minutes on their side of the issue. I'll start with Miss Nancy Darda from the Save Hines Park Group. Three minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner. As you know, I'm Nancy Darga, the former Chief of Design for Wayne County Parks. I'm also one of the founders of the Motor Cities National Heritage Area. I served there for 30 years, and I've also served as a director and executive director and founding member, one of the founding members of Friends of the Rouge. But I am actually here to represent Save Hines Park. I want you to know that we have 17,000 signatures on a petition that is asking you, the commissioners, to save the parks and keep them intact. Wayne County Parks raised over $1 million during some of the bleakest economic times the county ever faced to actually renovate and expand Nankin Mills. That mill just got the lobby of that mill just got renovated for $825,000 during what I perceive as a very solvent and beneficial time of Wayne County. We do not have to sell these mills in order to save them. We can use the model of Nankin Mills. If we could raise $1 million during some bleak times to renovate that mill, we can also raise money through grants to do the same with these mills and then lease them out for a private partnership with developers. This is the same system the state uses. It's the same system that the National Parks uses. You are being promised in your packages that there are deed restrictions and there's la, 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 la. But if you read the response of your own legal counsel, this is your legal counsel, it points out that the personal property owner has the right to subdivide and redevelop this property in the future. So I ask you, this park system was built by a gift, a family gift, on the Detroit River in Trenton. It was built by visionaries, Edward Hines, John and Edward Butler. During the Depression, if they could build this park system in the Depression, we have $250 million invested by the taxpayers of Wayne County to take care of this park system. What could we do now? We need visionaries. We do not need political people who are going to cave to pressure. This park system is 100 years old. Its future is in your hands. On behalf of the taxpayers who supported the millage, park millage, I am asking you to keep this park system intact. This is a pivotal point in the history of the park system. Does it stay whole or does it get dismembered? That is up to you, and I'm asking you to have some courageous leadership on your part. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today. Next, we'll have Mr. Greg Hoffman representing the Mill of Rouge LLC. He's going to speak to Wilcox Mill.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Greg Hoffman. I'm the Executive Director of the Art Foundation and the Project Manager on the Mill on Rouge project. We've been on this for about 19 months. We started back in May of 2018, about 2 months before the property even went on the market for listing. And in that process, in that time, we've had hundreds of community engagements. Beginning in January of this year, we sat down with many of the leadership of Save Hines Park in the first couple weeks of January. And again, since that time, we've had hundreds of meetings. We've gone to community organizations, civic clubs. I don't have weeknights anymore. I don't get evenings because we go to all these meetings. And in that process, we've really tried to gather and engage and really listen to all the feedback that both the support and the opposition to this they have, the concerns that they have, because we want to make sure that we're being as conscientious as possible and we're creating something that everybody can love. In that time, in June, we had more than 450 people at the Penn Theater in downtown Plymouth. Overwhelming support for this project. We listened to any comment that folks had. One that I wanted to specifically address that continues to come up is, why can't this be done as a lease? We have vetted that option very thoroughly. We know there have been at least 3 attempts previously to do a lease partnership on this property dating back to the early 1990s, including the Plymouth Arts Council. It didn't work then. It can't really work now. We've gone to 6 different financial institutions to vet the lease option, whether it's a yearly lease, a 30-year lease, a 100-year lease. The financing is not available because there's no enforcement involved in that. There's no collateral for the bank to offer that kind of money. So I live a few hundred yards away from the Wilcox Mill. It is not a park. It may be a park asset, a park maintenance facility. It's fenced off. It's dangerous. There is blight there. There's places where kids could fall, and we want to save that. So our proposal will, for the first time ever, convert this into a park. We'll have the Inner Child Sculpture Garden, which celebrates the history of the site. We will rehabilitate the property according to the Secretary of Interior standards and pursue adding it to the National Registry. And we'll make it open to the public as a park for the first time in its history. Those of you that saw last week, I just want to mention a few of the supporters that we have on this. The Michigan Historic Preservation Network, the Plymouth Preservation Network, Henry Ford Heritage Association, Motor Cities National Heritage Area, the Mayor of Plymouth and the Township Supervisors of the adjacent municipalities of Canton and Plymouth Township, and really thousands and thousands of Wayne County residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our last speaker will be Mr. Rick Cox to speak on Newburgh Mill.
Commissioners, audience, I didn't come here prepared to speak this morning. All I can tell you is Greg D'Onofrio and I are partners. I bought the water wheel, the Ford valve plant back in 1994. I've become very passionate about putting it back to its original condition. And a young man, Greg, who helped me do some of the demolition in that building in '94, came to me a few years ago and said, I want to do what you did. And I said, you've already done more than I've done. And he said, no, I want to get Henry Ford buildings and I want to put them back on the map and I want to make them look and make the community love me like they love you. And I said, well, that wasn't what I set out to do, but it did happen because I worked very closely with the city manager of Northville, the mayor, and when we got the 11th tenant in that building, and there's 150 professionals in that building supporting Northville now. And the mayor wants to say that I'm the reason Northville thrives the way it does today, but I don't agree with that. But it was him and the city manager who helped that happen. We worked together. Greg and I are both engineers by trade. Our hope is that we actually could restart the generator at Newburgh. Bill Stockhausen, who's done generators all over the state, is working with us to go look at that and see if we can't bring it back. All we want to do is bring the building back to use by the public so that people can go in and see what Henry Ford established. We're already collecting artifacts. We have the drill that was produced in the Newburgh plant that will be on display there. We've got one of the voltage regulators that we're currently working on the Phoenix mill right now. And what we want to do is we want to make a place that the community can go through and see it and see what Henry has created back in 1922, starting. I've actually been in touch with Henry Ford III by email. He's congratulated me several times on what I've done for his grandfather's valve plant and is wishing us the best of luck on the other mills. If you got any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. At this time,
Madam Chair, just wanted to ask, we've had only one from those that are opposing the sale. Can we have because we've had two from the other side.
well, it was one for Wilcox and one for Newburgh. Those are two separate agenda items.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, and then one.
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to have Commissioner Marecki remove her report. Move her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to motion to receive and file items 1 through 5, a motion to approve items 6 through 21. I'd like Commissioner Daub to be the maker of the motion on items 13 and 20. Commissioner Baydoun to be the maker of the motion on number 16. I'd like to note that items 19 and 20, we've received the amendments that were talked about last week that were contingent in the contracts, and that has all been set.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion, I'll start. If I could have someone come to the mic to discuss items 19 and 20 and 21. Those are the mill items. Someone from the administration?
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll start discussion, and then we'll go through all the commissioners with discussion on the entire report, but I'm sure they'll be mostly on these three items. For the mill proposed sale, there's been discussion of the lease arrangement and that as an option. Please give me your feedback on the lease option and why that was not presented to this body.
Yeah, and I think, Greg did a good job of maybe giving you a preview of that. These developers are, examples, right? They went and talked to different financial firms, and ultimately, lease options constantly fall short about financing these types of developments. It should be noted, right, and I think you have a letter in your packets that in the past, the Plymouth Arts Council did try to achieve financing for a lease at Wilcox Mill, and that fell through. And the main reasons why is these buildings need significant rehab, and they need upwards of at least $1 million for each building, probably more. And when they need that kind of money to rehab the buildings, people have to be able to go out and get that kind of financing. Well, whenever banks or lenders want to finance a development, they have to have collateral for security for their money. And usually that collateral comes in the form of a lien on the building. And when the building is being leased or the land is being leased, that collateral doesn't exist for them because they are not the owners of the land. And so for that revolving reason, financing a lease option at Wilcox, which is an example we like to use because it has been attempted in the past, constantly fails. So lease options really don't work here. What we did try to do is get as close as we could to a lease option, because we have to ask ourselves, why do we want a lease option on this site, right? We want a lease option so we can maintain some sort of control, some sort of oversight, so that we can continue to represent the interests of the people. Well, in this development agreement, you could look at this development agreement and say, we got everything that we would want in a lease option with all the benefits. We got protections to make sure that the building is developed according to the national, interior standards. We got protections for deed restrictions. We got a first right of refusal. And so if this property changes hands, those restrictions run with the land, the same way that you would want those protections over a lease. And if the developers want to sell the property, the county has the first right to repurchase that property before anybody else, so that we can maintain that sort of control over the site. But at the same time, you know what we get? We get a new park. We get to rehab that building. We get the property back in the tax rolls. We get our money up front. And so we basically get everything that we would want in a lease with all the benefits. So that's the report on the lease option.
Thank you. I will have a list of commissioners who would like to speak. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. I will be speaking in general terms of both of these items. More of a statement than anything, contrary to what the EDC director has stated. Our commission council has found that these deeds, as proposed, would not limit future uses of either mill property. And in other words, they could be, once they have ownership, taken ownership of the property, they may utilize the property for whatever purpose they seem appropriate. I, for one, trust and rely on our legal counsel and her staff when we get an opinion. And that was the opinion of our legal staff. Also, neither mill purchase agreement requires an earnest money deposit. That's highly unusual in a real estate transaction. And this a deposit demonstrates commitment to complete the sale on behalf of the purchasers. There's many problems with the proposals, both of the proposals, if you were to accept them. In fact, the loan letter that we received from a prospective lender for the Wilcox Mill clearly says it doesn't imply the bank is committed to providing the loan. At the outset, I think one of the biggest problems with these proposals is that the administration has only advertised the two properties as for sale, never attempting to explore a lease or public-private partnership arrangement, nor have they ever applied for any grants to do a renovation or restoration of either mill for public benefit. Either of the latter avenues would have ensured the property would have remained, the parkland would have remained in the ownership of the citizens of Wayne County. I strongly believe that the county commission has a responsibility to protect the parkland we have and not sell it for commercial ventures, and to do otherwise is a betrayal of the trust of the citizens that they've placed in us. While we all agree that the buildings are in deplorable condition, they got this way due to neglect and non-investment by the county. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested in Nankin Mill, which we all applaud. We could make it a priority to invest in Wilcox and Newburgh Mills by either of the examples that I've given, either through a private partnership, public-private partnership, or otherwise. And we can start by dedicating, we clear about $100,000 each year from the Light Fest profits. So that if we were to bond, we could use that as the payment towards that bond. I believe there's other ways to handle this, and I believe we have a responsibility to protect parklands for Wayne County citizens. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify the earnest money deposit, if or why there was none. Did we get a clarification on that?
with the earnest money deposit, particularly for, Newburgh Mill, we are asking the developers to purchase land, deed it to us, and then build us a new horse barn. The purchase of that property is about $200,000. Building the horse barn, could be anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000. And so before we can close on the site and actually transfer the deed over to the developers, they have to give us a certificate of occupancy on that new land. And that's a lot of risk for any person to take. And so it may not be a dollar amount for earnest deposit, but trust me, this is as much of a risk for earnest deposit for anybody. Because again, not only do they have to purchase the land and transfer it over to the county, they have to build us a horse barn, get a certificate of occupancy, and then, and only then, do they get the new land. And then as far as Wilcox goes, we wanted to treat the property the same.
Thank you.
I have a list of Commissioner Colleen and Baydoun. Anyone else? Basham, Webb. Okay, Commissioner Colleen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My comments are on items 19, 20, and 21 today. I would think that the entire room would agree that the county has neglected the mills in question for decades. The question before the Commission today is whether the proposals before us are the appropriate way for the county to rectify this problem. To guide the Commission decision-making, I think it appropriate to see how these proposals dovetail with the Wayne County Park Strategic Plan. I would point out throughout the discussion, this has never come up. There is no mention on how these proposals fit into that. I would also comment that it is very difficult to even find the strategic plan on the county website. I would issue people a 10-minute challenge. I'll give you 10 minutes to get on the county website and see if you can find it. My review of the plan, I found out about it serendipitously through another link, and I was like, oh, there it is, after looking for it for a long time. My review of the plan gives no guidance as to the county's plans for these mills. Similarly, we are looking at a proposal today to purchase nearly 17 acres of an old golf course to add to the park system. That proposal comes with no plan as to how it will be used as an asset for county citizens to enjoy. There is some discussion in the proposal from administration with regards to developing some trails and maybe some other amenities. The proposal mentions that there will be a plan by September of 2020. I am not disposed to approve the purchase with its future as a park uncertain, as park asset uncertain, and no budgets for what improvements are going to cost. I would not want to purchase this property only to neglect it as we was seen with the mills. Back to the discussion of the mills. The very first discussion I had with the Director of Economic Development on this topic several months ago, I raised my concern and opposition to selling county parkland. I urged that we go after grants to refurbish the buildings and with historic grants, and then lease the buildings to interested individuals or companies. I was assured that had been looked into, and it was a dead end. In the proposal before us today, there is no discussion of the efforts to do exactly that and to look at that and why it was rejected. I am not convinced that this path is closed to the county. I am not opposed to having private business operating in our parks. The National Park System leases to concessionaires, and they do not sell the land. I am concerned that the county will lose control of the land, right of first refusal notwithstanding. And parenthetically, I comment that apparently we do have a right of first refusal now. It came to me in an email with 240 other pages last night, that the right of first refusal, and I have no analysis from my staff as to what that right is and what it means. So that was a last-minute addition. Having the right is different from a guarantee that we would actually buy them back. My understanding is we'd have 30 days at the time to do this. Since 65% of one of the mills would be retrofitted for residential, what would the cost to the county be to buy them back? And then any structural changes that would be made to these properties to make them suitable to put them up for lease if we did purchase them back? Would the administration, whoever they are at the time, actually exercise that right if and when the time comes? There is no guarantee of that. Madam Chair, I have other concerns about this project that includes things like how these sales are going to affect traffic. No traffic study has been done. I am also concerned that the 150 public meetings that gets referenced were not meetings to explore what options we have for these parks. They were specifically on the sale of the property. So to say there was public meetings that was specific to one pathway, not to a broader plan about what we would do. Also, with regards to one of the properties, it's really not clear about public access to the land after the sale. But I am heartened by the number of county residents that are passionate about their parks. My inbox is crowded every day. I think we should use that interest to engage county systems on our park strategic plan. If all we do is approve these sales today and not have a robust public discussion regarding our park strategic plan, we will have missed an opportunity while so many of our citizens are focused on this. Madam Chair, I'll be voting no on the two proposals to sell these mills, as well as no on the purchase of the additional 17 acres. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, please allow me to welcome my dear friend from Dearborn, City Councilwoman Leslie Herrick, who was here this morning. Thank you for being here, Leslie. Madam Chair, I have a few questions before I get to my remarks towards the end. And I have some questions to the Director of Parks, Alicia Bradford. Is Alicia here?
She's here.
And for the record, I did ask some of these questions last week at our Public Services Committee meeting. And if there's someone here from the media, please take notes, because many of these facts surrounding this issue have been twisted, especially the accessibility of these two sites to the general public. Mrs. Bradford, my first question is, the 6 acres of land where the 2 mills are located, are they currently accessible to the general public?
Through the chair, no, they are not currently.
Were they ever open to the general public?
To my knowledge and through records, they were not open to the general public, although Ms. Darger indicated from last conversation that they were open in 1978 for use, but that was well over 40 years ago.
So to the best of your knowledge, Mrs. Bradford, there were never picnic tables at Wilcox where a family can enjoy a barbecue on a Sunday afternoon?
To my knowledge and record, no, it has not been.
And is the Wilcox property currently zoned Parks and Recreation, or what is the zoning on it?
To my knowledge, the municipality is responsible for zoning, so there is a mixed use of zoning, both residential and park use in that particular area.
And the last question, Mrs. Bradford, we have about 2,300 acres in Hines Park, correct?
Correct.
How many of those acres are open to the general public, would you say?
Probably about 2,100, 2,200 of those acres are open to the general public, although some of those acres are not easily accessible because they're wooded areas as well to traverse within Hines Park.
Okay, would you consider then those 2 properties that we're discussing today are included in those that are not accessible to the general public?
Yes, as well as our other maintenance yards and locations as well.
Okay, I'll have a few more remarks later. Thank you, Mrs. Bradford.
Thank you. I have a list still, Basham, Webb, and Hayes. Anyone else would like to add to the list? Okay, Commissioner Basham, Clark Coleman. Commissioner Basham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sat through the committee hearings. I've received numerous phone calls and emails and printed literature, like I even got on my desk today, which I try to read. I've never told anyone on either side where I'm at on this issue, and I have met with both sides on this issue. And anyway, in spite of what some folks are saying about a rubber stamp and the end of the process and it's already done, this is part of the process today, that us meeting on this today is part of this process, so it's not done till we take the vote. And then lastly, I have probably more no votes on this commission than any other member of this commission. But let me dispose how I'm going to vote. I'm going to support this because I think I did my homework, and I think it's something worth supporting, and I know that it has not been open to the public, and there's all sorts of other issues, good, bad, and indifferent, but sometimes we disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. I have done my homework. I've just now exposed how I'm going to vote on this item, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that my colleagues, Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Colleen, did an outstanding job at voicing my concerns and feelings as it relates to this sale. I would only say that the entire process, from the way it began to the way it ended, wasn't something that I would say is the best way for government to do business. I think that it was built on a story. It was built, there was a perception built that there was no other way that we could resolve the restoral and reuse of those park assets. And because we can't afford it, I love it when people from the outside tell me, who approves a budget, that we can't afford it. The reason that we can't afford it is because it hasn't been a priority of administrations, any administrations. And then it takes 8 votes of the county commission, and if we're vetoed, it takes 10. So to post blame on any one particular member of our staff or commissioners that for a way something was handled, the county executive proposes the budget. The county commission disposes the budget. The proposals come from the county executive. We have to vote them up or down. So just so that the people here today understand what the process is and what the limitations of authority and outcomes are based on our process, because I think people exploit public ignorance when it comes to the internal process of this body to say what people did and didn't do in the past and whose fault it is and that type of thing. I've been hearing that and reading it, and it's just such a unfortunate exploitation of things that people don't know, because this is what they do every day. So this body, if there's 8 of them, can amend the budget if the administration doesn't propose it to restore these mills. If they were to restore these mills, they could lease them like they do the Chateau Banquet Hall in Elizabeth Park, or the kayak rental, or the Segway rental, or the Inkster Valley Golf Course, or several other facilities that we currently have within our parks under those arrangements. So there would be no need for collateral or for people to go to the bank and get these leases. I'm hearing this whole argument that's completely unnecessary. We collect $10.5 million a year from the taxpayers to maintain and restore their parks. The reason that it hasn't been done is because it hasn't been a priority in these particular facilities from the administrations, or to get, 8 votes on this body to make that change. Doesn't mean it can't happen, though. I mean, this body has all the power in the world to amend the budget, whether it's proposed in it or not. The administration could propose the monies be allocated to restore those mills and lease it to the people who are interested, and the Art Foundation could have their building, and they could get into a 30-year lease for $1 a year like we do with Dearborn Heights and Parkland Park. They could spend all their money they're going to spend on bricks and mortar and programming, and it could be a win-win. Same thing goes with the other mill. So there really isn't there's no necessary action that has to happen to sell these mills in order to repurpose them and reuse them for public use. It's a fallacy. It's been a fallacy since the day this whole thing started. And it was started a year before most of us even knew anything about it. So it was pretty hard to get in front of that perception that was put out there, but people were sold on it before it was even brought to the attention of Save Hines Park. The people who care about the park are the 17,000 people that signed their petition against these deals from all of our districts, by the way. So I agree. I think this is a blatant betrayal of the county taxpayer to ask them to pay $10 million a year, $250 million to support parks, and then not utilize their funds to restore and repurpose these mills. This is, my opinions here are, and though I've been attacked by the folks interested in the Wilcox Mill and their friends and supporters, I've never attacked them. I have nothing against their proposal or their proposed use of their, I've met with both Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Rocco and was just really, really thrilled with what they want to do. Yet their people still attack me because I don't support the sale of that mill. But the reason I'm not supporting it is because it's forever. It's forever gone. Unfortunately, none of us are forever. We're mortal beings. They're not going to live forever. And they have the right to make that anything they want. I could have a factory in the park. So down the road, and there's no deed restrictions that last forever. Come on, the deed restrictions that were on these parcels when we got them, half of them were dedicated to parkland, and we're selling them, aren't we? So, I mean, that's no ironclad that these are going to be used for what they're intended or what's being proposed today in perpetuity. We're kidding ourselves. So anyway, I just want to say that I'm obviously not going to support the sale of these mills, but it's no reflection on what's intended for their purposes or the people who are buying them. I've seen Mr. Cox's work. I respect his work and his intentions, and frankly, I like the idea that the Rocco and the Art Foundation want to do there. It's nothing to do with it. The fact is those things can happen without selling these lands and getting leases and all the collateral, and I just wish people would quit insulting my intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Haydes.
Thank you, Madam the Chair. I think we discussed this issue with the public, among ourselves, with the administration. We did our homework as a commissioner. I think the million-dollar question is, we have the history. It shows us what the county did in the past. And give me personally sad decision that is the county going to do better with those facilities for next 70 years? I don't see that at all. And doesn't matter how much people telling me, we have the millage, we have the budget, we could amend the budget. You know, rob Peter to pay Paul doesn't work in government. Because anytime if you don't have enough money to do the important thing in the people's life, the safety issue. We have bridges, we have 323 bridges in Wayne County, 200 and more, maybe 220 in bad shape, and we closed some of them in Canton, in Huron. You know, we could talk about how we're going to spend money in one area and miscalculate the effect on the other area. The county have $120 million surplus on paper. But if we're going to fix the important problem the county faces in ditches, in flood, and road, and bridges, and public safety, too, the crime on the rise, we need $1 billion, not $120 million, what we have surplus. We in deficit. I see it. If we can't do what we need to do, we are in deficit. Now we have those piece properties owned by the county for many years, and they was given to the county. They was not zoned as a park in the past. And what's bothering me, debate the issue, it's a healthy, but not telling the truth to gain support or lose support, that it's not proper thing to do. People say, stop selling Hines Park. We're not selling Hines Park. I tell it right here. If anybody want to dispute that, let me hear it. We selling a property that was given to the park and never been used. I visit the facility in Northville. I was amazed. I was surprised. What happened to that property? I wish we could do that with every property been under negligence for many years. Doesn't matter if the government own it or a private owner own it. Long as it's put to the use, comply with the ordinance, with the rule and regulation, and the people enjoy what they have. Many of my constituents and my colleague and the people who's for it and against it, they all agree. And the project, it's a good project. They support the project. But then the difference between selling or own. We own it for 70 years, we didn't do nothing. If we don't own it and we put light and make it open to the public to enjoy, I think it's better option. Doesn't take, let's not get ourselves spinning the wheel in the same spot to fighting for and against. Let's debate the issue and what's the positive thing and what's the negative thing. I think when you put those two facilities with the proposal, you know what? I think let's try it, because what we've been doing for the last 70 years didn't work. So that's why I'm in support of the project. And I think I value the local support and the surrounding community. Every mayor or township supervisor support the project. All the experts, Ford Foundation, and many other organizations, you heard their name, they supporting the project. It's not political. It's something we need to make sure we do better for the area, for the environment, for the property. Madam the Chair, I'm in support of the project.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Clark Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, on item 8, on the agenda, I'd like to be the maker, with your permission, of item number 8. Thank you. And on the issue of...
I'm sorry, Commissioner, item 8 is Ajax Paving Industries?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the 7 Mile West Outer Drive.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And on the issue before us on the park mills, I've been an elected official for 25 years. Served in school board, served in the legislature, House, Senate, and now the commissioner. And I've always looked at both sides of an issue. As I have this one, I have met with both sides of this issue. I received a ton of emails and calls. I've listened to that. And I got to say that I'm getting calls and emails on the pros and the cons of this issue. And somehow or another, the pros, in many instances, outweigh the cons. I also took a look at how the surrounding cities feel about it. That's very important, about how the surrounding cities feel about it. And it appears that they're supportive of this issue. So that's how I decide how I'm going to look at a particular issue. I'm never a rubber stamp. I make up my own mind, and I base it on how I feel and what facts have been put before me. So on that issue, I will vote the way that I normally vote, with careful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Scott, did I not see your hand?
I think you did.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to tell you like my father said to me when I was a little girl. Everything changes because everything must change, but we must be ready for the change. I have been around a little bit longer than Commissioner Clark Coleman. Served in many, many different offices. And we don't look at the real big picture on things. We think we know it all. Well, I've been a legislator as well as an administrator for the city of Highland Park. And let me just say that, and as Commissioner Clark Coleman said, the surrounding areas, the mayors and those, the Ford Motor Company, those people, they all agreeing to make some changes. So I think that we just need to take a page out of some of those books and say, there's time to make some changes. I was a commissioner back in the late 70s. We were third largest county in the nation. We had money then. And all of the different legislators here in the county have not done what maybe they should have done. Well, I want to thank this administrator for having the foresight to do something. And I believe that the engineers and those that will be responsible then, the parks folks and all of them, will do what is necessary to do. So I would hope that we would go ahead and do this, because I've heard this for the last year or two, and I've been back here for the last 10 years, and we haven't done it. Well, they're ready to do something, and we need to make some changes. No, we can't all foresee how it's going to come out, but we can all work at it together, and hopefully we will be able to do that. So I will be voting for this today, Madam Chair, and hopefully we will end this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Varga.
I wasn't going to speak today, but what I am very upset about is the misinformation that started with all of chain emails that were sent. When I, one by one, started answering emails and asking questions, those that I got to communicate with online said, well, it's coming from one particular organization, and they're basing their information on the emails that they were sent. So when we started talking about the changes and how legislation really works, that a concept starts out, then we work on it, then the commission eventually will get the contract, then we're going to check and balance to make sure that some of the things like the deed restrictions and other things that are going to come, the value of these things being put on the historic register. And I know from firsthand, because I probably wouldn't be sitting here, or nor would I have served 12 years in the state legislature had we not fought to keep the old Frank H. Beard School, used to be named as Garfield, you can look it up on Google, If we didn't put that on the historic register, when the Detroit Board of Education wanted to close a school, and the only way we could save it was to save the building. So for 20 years, it was the historic Frank H. Beard School that operated as an elementary school, the oldest school in the district. And today stands there because it's on the historic register, and we're hoping to save it so it can't be torn down, because it held, that one building held the community together. So the historic value of these mills alone is going to take a lot of money to restore, because the outside has to be restored to its original shape. So going back to the emails and all the misinformation, many of my constituents were applauding that I held back from saying yea or nay to either side until I was able to do my own studying and was able to see the contract, because that's where the nuts and bolts are, and that is when I have to make my decision. But I do think that we as legislators need to kick back sometimes. It's easier to say no than actually do our homework and accept change and accept that we can't do everything at the commission. We can't do everything as an executive. We cannot raise the pay scale and also do this. We cannot do infrastructure and do this. So I think priorities have to be set. And when you find somebody who's willing to put the monies in to do the things that we want to do, and it's going to be good for the future for our kids, then I think we have to take the opportunity. And sometimes, yes, we have to think outside the box. And I think that is exactly what I'm going to do today by voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Vice Chair Pro Tem Ware.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to commend the Wayne County Executive for putting his best foot forward, him and his team, to find ways that we can better utilize the mills, because I think I've been here the longest and we never came up with a proposal that we can put forward to the public. So this is something that not only the surrounding communities, I'm like Commissioner Hattis, that all the local communities have sent letters, have came to some of our meetings and said that they were very supportive of this project. But what I like about the project most is that we're doing a lot of outreach to young people, and we all sit here and we always say young people are our future. So it's time for us to put our vote where our statements are. There's 15 Wayne County commissioners here. We all represent our district well. We have different views of getting there to represent our district well, but I'm not a rubber stamp. It's very unfortunate that some of my colleagues may feel like we're rubber stamps, but I think that this is a good program, a good project and proposal that's been put forward. Like Commissioner Scott said, we all hope that we're doing what's good for the community. It's no different than when some of us, not all of us, voted for the jail some years ago, and you see what that turned out. So we all hope that we're going to vote for a project that's going to be successful and good for the citizens in Wayne County. And I know that this $10 million keep coming up over and over. I mean, when you look at government and the parks that we have, $10 million is nothing. Wayne County have lost residents. So when we lose residents, what happened to our tax base? Our tax base go down. I will be voting in favor of this project today. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam the Chair, to Commissioner Ware point, I have one remark. I agree with Commissioner Ware and everything But I wanted to remind, because she mentioned there are 15 commissioners in the room, and she nobody, it's rubber stamp here, everybody make decision based on what they feel. But I want to remind everybody, it's a tough issue, it's been debated, but we have to remember the most important thing, the majority rule with the respect, it's the word I'm going to hammer on, with the respect to the minority's right, and the minority owe respect to the majority's decision too.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have one more commissioner who hasn't spoken. Thank you for your sentiment. Commissioner Dobb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to echo Commissioner Scott's sentiments on that it is time to make a change. And I have heard a lot of talk and discussion about what these properties were originally intended for and what people who were living 100 years ago wanted these buildings to be used for. But I think it's more important that we look at what the people who are here now want these properties to be used for. Also, there's also a lot of talk about what future generations will want on these properties. And I think that that might not be a decision for us to make. We should leave those decisions up to the people who will be alive 100 years from now. If they want a factory on those properties, if that makes them happy, then who are we to tell them no? So I also want to echo Commissioner Ware's sentiments on young people are our future. This is, we need to be talking about what do people in our communities want now? What is going to be beneficial for the young people who are alive now in our communities? Since I was elected this year in January, I have spent so much time carefully researching this matter. I've visited the properties and the mills. I've spoke with the stakeholders on both sides of the subject, talked with residents at town halls. It's been a topic of my monthly coffee hours and community events. And from my research and conversations with the public, I compiled a list of in-depth questions and concerns which I submitted to our commission staff, all of which were included and sufficiently answered in the analysis package presented to the commissioners prior to the Committee on Public Services on November 26th. I strongly believe that a public official should always be accessible and communicative with her constituents and should vote in accordance with the people she represents. I believe that these projects will enhance Hines Park through not only restoring the historic mills, but by providing the access to land that has not been accessible in recent history. Wilcox Mill is located in my district, and I am proud to be making the motion to support the sale of this mill, and I will also be voting in favor of Newburgh Mill. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, okay, now we're doing round two. Commissioner Hayes, did you want to complete your thought, or were you good?
No,
You're good. Okay. Commissioner Baker McCormick.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to make a comment in reference to the sale of the mills. Most of the questions that I asked the administration is after reading what I get or information I get from our commission counsel. But I'd like to clarify everything because sometimes I think the public doesn't understand because of the misinformation. So in saying that, I believe that after 70 years of the mills being abandoned, that there is a need to do something. And again, other commissioners have said, and I agree that the prior administrations did nothing to rehabilitate the properties. So if we have an administration that has a plan of action that looks good, that will put the property back in use, will be available to the public, I see that as a good thing. And I also just really simply took a piece of paper and wrote pros and wrote cons. And under each of those, I wrote why this is a good thing and why it's not such a good thing. And in this case, the pros outweigh the cons. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our last two speakers, Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Baidoon.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Of the communications that I received in the office, written communications, only 18% of those supported this, and 82% were opposed. And there they are. We monitored those, and it means a great deal to me that people turned out to support our parklands. And once these two sales are approved, we've lost control of those properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baidoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple points I would like to make that are outside my prepared remarks. To elaborate on the question that my colleague Baker McCormick asked about the deposit. I don't think not having a deposit minimizes the significance of the agreements that were submitted. Actually, in real estate, legally, you do not have to have a deposit offered on a purchase agreement. If it makes any of you feel better, we can ask both developers to put $500 or $1,000 deposit if it makes us feel better. And the other issue that just hit me while I'm sitting and listening to all of this, the Phoenix Mill, which was sold last year, and I was not on the commission, does not have a first right of refusal provision in that agreement. And this body voted unanimously to support it. Phoenix was deeded the same way that the other mills were deeded to the county, according to the deeds that I had an opportunity to review. So last week, the Public Services Committee unanimously voted to move the two proposed sales of the two mills to the full board. That was the first step in a long process. Today, we will be voting on approving the sales of Wilcox and Newburgh. If approved, this would be our second step. The developers still have to go through their due diligence process. So it is not a done deal, ladies and gentlemen, until we actually transfer title of the properties. I would like to thank all of the residents who came to our meeting last week and those who are here today. I would like to thank all the concerned residents of Wayne County who emailed my office and sent letters. I read all of the emails and letters, and I did take into consideration all the issues raised by the residents. I did not rush into making a decision on the proposed sales of the two mills. I did rely on my experience as a real estate broker for over 30 years when I looked at the two proposals. I did ask many questions. I did analyze the option of leasing the two sites versus selling them. The two development agreements come very close to a lease agreement, in my opinion. Some people may disagree with me. Any potential tenant of these two sites cannot obtain financing because they do not own the property. Any bank will require collateral. A lien must be placed on the property. I am very comfortable with the deed restrictions as outlined in the agreements. Any future developer who wishes to develop the two mills will have to abide by the deed restrictions attached to the properties, because those deed restrictions, ladies and gentlemen, will run with the land forever. Providing access to the public during park hours is a deed restriction that will run with the land forever. The only body that can remove any deed restriction, ladies and gentlemen, is this legislative body, the county commission, not the Wayne County executive. About 2 weeks ago, before I truly committed to supporting these two proposed sales, I requested from Mr. Khalil Rahal that a first right of refusal provision be included in the agreements. This was very important to me. I wanted the county to have the first option to buy the mills back in the future if they should come up for sale. Both developers agreed to add that provision in the agreement because I believe they are both very genuine. Registering the historical sites with the National Registry means that those buildings cannot be demolished, they cannot be altered or removed. This is another way of protecting these sites. I would like to say this to all of my colleagues on the commission. As elected officials, we have a moral obligation to state the facts as they are and not change them. It is very evident that the 6 acres of land at Wilcox and Newburgh are not open to the general public. To state that the county is selling land that is accessible to the public is not accurate. To state that the county is selling Hines Park is not accurate. We are not selling the 2,300 acres of Hines Park. As a matter of fact, the county is adding 17 acres to the footprint of Hines Park, and no one seems to be excited about that for some reason. As commissioners, we can agree to disagree in a respectful manner. Last week at a public forum, some of us were falsely accused of not asking any questions during our Public Services Committee. We were labeled as rubber stamp for the Evans administration. This is not acceptable. Just because some of us share the same vision for the Mill Run project with the administration does not make us rubber stamps. We have no personal agendas here. Our only agenda is to protect and preserve the historical integrity of the mills at Hines Park. That is the only agenda we have, ladies and gentlemen. These properties have been neglected for the last 70 years to a point where they became an eyesore. When our county was in much better shape financially, and my colleague can attest to that, Commissioner Scott, nothing was done to preserve them. Today, let us take this historical opportunity by taking the second step to approve these two public-private agreements to bring these two mills back to life and make the land around them, in reality, accessible to the general public. Let this Wayne County Commission of 2019 be remembered 50 years from now as the legislative body who made the bold decision to preserve the legacy of Henry Ford. As I stated last week, local governments have no business being in the real estate business. Public-private partnerships with deed restrictions are the best way to protect historical sites. And lastly, Madam Chair, this document that was presented to us last week by the Henry Ford Heritage Association, and many of us have seen this, this is the most powerful endorsement of these two projects. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Now I'm going to speak. The proposed sale of Phoenix and Newburgh Mill has been a passionate issue for many commissioners and residents for this entire year. And because of this, I scheduled a committee of the whole earlier this year so that all commissioners could hear the proposal, hear from the public, and then offer any suggestions to make this a win-win for the community. Condos were on the initial plan, and I made it clear that that was a non-starter for me. I do not approve of condos in Hines Park, and I opposed it just as I opposed a similar proposal for condos in Rouge Park, which is in my district. Another issue that was important to me were that the mills keep the integrity to the park. No one wants these properties turned into used car lots or anything else that doesn't enhance the park. Therefore, I requested that we put in the agreement that we would have a first right of refusal in the rare case that Mr. Cox or Mr. Rocco wanted to sell these properties. Not having condos and having the first right of refusal are crucial elements to agreements and having these properties converted to family-friendly park amenities instead of continuous eyesores. Again, this issue has been very passionate for many people, and I want to thank all of the members of the community who have come out now twice and sometimes 3 or 4 times to hear these proposals and to share with us your issues and your concerns. However, passion should not cross the line to name-calling. Passion should not cross the line to disrespecting people who have opinions different than yours. Agreeing to disagree is a sign of professionalism and civil discourse. Name-calling and making false allegation is beneath this body. It is not professional, and it will not be tolerated. So however the vote goes today, one thing is constant, that each and every person in this room is concerned about Hines Park, our park system, and wants the best for our residents and our precious jewel called Hines Park. At that, I would say thank you for all the comments that we've heard from the commissioners and the public. Commissioner Vice Chair Pro Tem.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I would like to call the question.
Questions being called. Again, Commissioner Marecki has made her recommendations to receive and file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and to move approval of the balance of her report. It's been moved and supported. All in favor, please vote. I'm sorry, let me repeat that. Please vote.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Killeen?
I'd like to be recorded as a no on items 19, 20, and 21.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Commissioner Webb?
I'd like to be recorded as a no on items 19 and 20.
Duly noted. Commissioner Anderson?
I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on 19 and 20.
Duly noted. Madam Clerk?
Are you going to vote on the rest of the report?
Would you like us to vote on the rest of the agenda?
Yes, please.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item.
We are on page 13.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Varga? Microphone.
I would like to move that your comments and Commissioner Baydun's comments be added to today's proceedings.
Thank you. Duly noted. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
We are on page 13 of the agenda, upcoming committee and task force meetings.
Please note meetings for next week, December 5th. Today at 12, again, we have our Senior Citizen and Veterans Affairs meeting, and then the other committee meetings are as listed. I can't hear you. Thank you. Next item.
Public comments.
Public comments. We have cards. Public comments will be 1 minute.
You know, and I'm sorry that, because I was concerned too.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Steve Besk.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak here today. I wasn't aware that our comments were going to be after, but I will just leave you with this. I appreciate the time, appreciate coming, seeing how this all works, from knowing Tony and Greg on a personal level, seeing their tireless work and determination. I know that this project is in good hands. I'll leave you this quote from former President Barack Obama. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And I appreciate your willingness to make change, to do better for our community and our generation moving forward. Thank you.
Everything must change.
That's an excellent quote.
Thank you. Next card.
Selma Makai Elzane.
Good morning, everyone. It's Salma Maki Elzane. It's Maki Elzane. I'm just here, I'm very passionate to the parks. It's very important to me, to my family, and to my grandkids, and to everybody. But I would like to make a comment that, if I'm allowed for 1 second. Now, everybody here was saying, I respect each and every one of you, and I respect your opinions. but I didn't like the idea where you kept saying, Commissioner this, Commissioner this, Commissioner. What about the 17,000 signatures? Where do they come in the picture? Are we just an outsider? With all due respect to all you commissioners. And another thing, in addition, I'd like to add, parks are proven to improve water quality and improve the quality of the air we breathe, and produces a habitat for the wildlife, and provides a place for our children and families to connect with nature. So please reconsider selling, and please vote no. I've grew up all my life in Hines. My kids are at Hines, my grandkids, and you kept saying 70 years from now. If 70 years from now, where are our grandkids? We're judging from 70 years that we can start now. So please, please reconsider your votes. And other than that, you know what? That's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all listening. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Next card.
Paul Stark.
Paul Stark. My backyard backs up to Hines Park, so I'm very concerned about Hines Park. I'm not sure what I want to say now, except that 17,000 signatures on the petition. And at the earlier meeting last week, 25 people took the time to come down here to say, no, don't sell Newburgh Mill. One person said, no, sell it. I would love Mr. Cox's idea for Newburgh Mill. And the way to do it, to keep everyone happy, to satisfy everyone, would have been to lease them out. Take our $10 million, which I heard is, nothing, I think it was referred to, right? Nothing. Yet you want us to support it. So take the 10 million, go for those grants, double that money, 20 million, restore the mills, make them like Nankin Mills, make them beautiful. I just can't believe what just happened today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Aaron Harvey.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your vote today. I'm reading on behalf of Sean Wilson. He is the President and CEO of Boys and Girls Club of Southeast Michigan. Commissioners, I've had the opportunity to see firsthand the impact Tony Rocco and the Art Foundation has had on lives of youth, and specifically the youth of Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeast Michigan. Through a partnership launched in early 2019, Tony and the Art Foundation introduced our youth to a therapeutic and skill-building benefits of art. I saw our youth slowly change from being withdrawn, hesitant, and unsure to confident and proud of the works they created. For many of them, seeing their works displayed at the Foundation Hotel was an achievement they never thought possible, and it instilled a strong sense of pride and accomplishment. I believe the Arts Foundation programs work. We need more organizations across Wayne County doing the hard work of providing the caring and connecting adults our youth need to be socially and emotionally strong. Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeast Michigan plans to continue and expand our partnership with the Art Foundation, and believe youth from our Detroit, Romulus, and Belleville clubs will greatly benefit from participating in classes at the newly proposed mill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Bill Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm disappointed in your vote, and I believe your grandchildren's grandchildren will rue this day that you've sold their birthright for a promise, not for a guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Mary Weidel.
The first thing I'd like to talk about is the public trust, and transparency is important to it. So many people I discussed this with had no idea what the mills were being sold. Why not first ask county residents what they would like to see done with the mills? Why not form a committee for visioning of parks and their future and include the public in it? Why not have a public survey to get stakeholders' ideas and desires for the mills before deciding to sell them? And why not even use Wayne County Parks' Facebook page to communicate these ideas? Let's look at what the city of Detroit is doing with their waterfront parks, receiving a $5 million grant from the EPA for rehabilitation, and they too are in very bad shape. Why did Detroit not sell their parkland, yet we had to? In 2015, the Plymouth Arts and Recreation Complex, located in the city of Plymouth, was started at the original Plymouth High School, a historical building over 100 years old. This arts and recreation complex is where the Art Foundation and Tony Rocco are currently located. Since inception, it has been seeking tenants and currently has a variety of spaces available and is impacted by this new complex going in just 1 mile from where it's at. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card, please.
John Gosey.
Next card.
Jack Smiley.
Yes, I'm disappointed that I couldn't speak before the vote, but I'm more disappointed that commissioners didn't seem to take into account the questions raised by your own council. However, where do we go from here? I hope Wayne County can put parks on a higher priority. I recommend you institute a Parks Commission to oversee the parks. I work with several communities and I work with several counties in Southeast Michigan, and one thing that Washtenaw County has is a Parks Commission that is fully committed to improving parks. I am presently working with Washtenaw County Parks to purchase another 80 acres to add to one of their nature preserves. In the last 60 years, Wayne County has sold off hundreds and hundreds of acres of parkland, and the only land they've acquired is a 40-acre parcel which I spearheaded back in 1993. I worked with county park staff at that time to get a state grant to cover the cost, and we acquired 40 acres for the county at no cost to the county. We can improve the parks. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Annie Rubel.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for letting me speak. I won't take very much time because the vote has already occurred, but I wanted to thank everyone for their reasoned approach and looking to gather the facts. As a professional preservationist managing the restoration of the Henry Ford Estate in Dearborn, I know how time-consuming, expensive, and risky these projects are. And so I really commend the purchasers, the private citizens willing to take on that risk for their bravery and courage. And I really appreciate, as a young person, a taxpayer in Wayne County, the opportunity to see heritage honored and to see new opportunities for young people. They're the ones who are asking for this more than anything else. You saw a very diverse audience in support of this, and I think that's really important. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Melanie Elliott.
Thank you. I just wanted to specifically thank Vice Chair Ware and Commissioner Daub for bringing up the fact that the youth and future generations can really speak for themselves on this issue. I heard a lot of people on both sides bringing up the fact that they want to preserve these sites for future generations and for the youth of the community, but the youth and future generations really are able to speak for themselves and have their own voice. The youth specifically came out overwhelmingly in favor of this issue, myself included, and as Commissioner Dobbs specifically said, future generations really can decide for themselves what they want for these sites, what they want them to be, and if they decide that they don't want what we have there, then that's up to them. We can't control the future, and if we want change in the future from what we have, then, you know, we have to decide for ourselves what we want at that point in time. But I just really want to thank everybody for their really thorough consideration of this topic, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Ellen Elliott.
Thank you so much. I am a lifelong resident of Wayne County and a longtime resident of the city of Plymouth since I was 9 years old. I would like to thank Commissioner Baydoun for his questions that he asked earlier, and I'd like to also make a correction. when you asked about were there picnic tables, were there ever, the only time that there were was when Henry Ford owned that property. And so for us to be able to bring that back is wonderful. So I appreciate you bringing that up and making notice of that, because we can finally have that back to honor his legacy for his purpose. He wanted that to be a community space not only for his workers, but for the rest of the community to come out. And furthermore, anyone that questions what will go on that site, I have full confidence in the Plymouth Building Department and Planning Commission to oversee the site plan for this project to make sure that it's done right. Their meetings are very, very long. I go to all their meetings, and I assure you, they're laughing because it's true. I go to all their meetings, and I'm confident we will make this project work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Lori Stechow.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for their thoughtful consideration of these matters. I'm a lifelong resident of Wayne County, and I stand before you today as a parent of multiple children suffering from depression and social anxiety disorders. Like many of you, I used to think that these adolescent diagnoses were overblown and paving the way for our young people to avoid hard work and commitment. Those assumptions disappeared as I held my teenage daughter in my arms and listened to her hopelessness, witnessed her self-harm, and in her interest in suicide. Inconceivably, my husband and I, as well as my daughter's birth father, prepared ourselves to lose her. And then something magical happened. She discovered the healing properties of music, both in terms of composition and band camaraderie. And she found that through a nonprofit in our town that provides rehearsal and performance spaces for these events. My daughter is now a thriving junior at Eastern Michigan University, and this past summer finished her first regional tour, and they perform most weekends and are poised to release their third album. To me and her, all of this seems like a miracle. The Plymouth Mill on Rouge project represents the same potential, and that is to create a go-to location for people interested in creating and interacting with creativity. While every young person doesn't face the same challenges as my daughter, all children in this day and age are facing the same societal pressures, based in part by the dark chasm they carry in their pockets, their smartphones. Please give me just another minute. As parents, we're tasked with keeping our children safe from predators, thieves, bullies, molesters, and the like. And yet the focus of a majority of their time and energy involves the same technology that exposes them to this worst that this world has to offer. Unless you live in a cave, you've seen numerous studies linking social media with depression and suicide. Against the sobering backdrop comes Tony Rocco Art Foundation and the Plymouth Mill on Rouge project, the output of which is everything that social media is not, whether it's the physicality of paintings, drawing, and sculpture, or the in-the-moment aspects of music performance. All of our children need an escape from Snapchat and obsessive texting. Opportunities like this are few and far between, and this one is right before us. Changing people through art, healing people through art, and saving people through art. And I thank you all for your votes.
Thank you. Next card, please.
Bob Lambert.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to speak. I commend the vote today. I've had the pleasure of working with Tony and Greg over the last 2.5 years at the Foundation Hotel, and I'll tell you that their contribution was enormous. Time Magazine nominated that hotel as one of the top 100 places to visit in the world. It's things like that that are happening in this city right now, and your vote makes me very proud to be here and be a part of the community. Right now, there is an optimism and the faucet of creativity and progressive thinking and why not and what if are everywhere that you look. And your vote today didn't turn that faucet off, so I commend you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next card, please.
No cards.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Wayne County Commission? Just come to the microphone, please.
Hello, Mark Bernhardt. I want to thank you all for your time and for your service. It is greatly appreciated. I saw a sign earlier, Save Hines Park, and I have to say that I wholeheartedly support that sentiment. Heinz Park is a jewel of Metro Detroit, and I live 2 to 3 miles from the site, the Wilcox site, and it's an eyesore. It's crumbling. It's fenced off. It's not usable for the public. The parts that aren't fenced off are being used as a dump. You can't walk through it. It's scary. So I want to thank you all for your vote to save Heinz Park. Thank you for restoring a historic site. Thank you for expanding usable space in the park. Thank you for beautifying the park. Thank you for voting for the families like my parents and I that have enjoyed that park over the years and will now have more space to enjoy. Thank you for voting for the kids that will benefit through the Art Foundation. Tony's work and the Art Foundation benefits kids all over Metro Detroit. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you have a couple more cards?
Sally Petrella.
Great job.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about this vote. I appreciate it, those who voted in favor of parks. I don't doubt that there's some really neat plans for these parks, but what I don't like is this precedent of whittling away at our park land. And I would just ask you as commissioners to think about this, ask you as Wayne County Executive, this has to stop, that we don't care about our parks enough to want to keep the jewels of parks and keep them as part of our parks. I go way back with Alicia Bell, back when the city of Detroit decided to put 115 acres of Rouge Park up for sale for residential development. This is not that dissimilar from that. And the city of Detroit has finally recognized the value of their parks, and now they're expanding parks. Why is Wayne County so stuck in this mode of selling off everything that made life worth living in this county? Please help protect our parks and stop doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Next card, please.
Johnny Eggenberger.
I too, like the first speaker, thought I was going to be speaking before the vote. So in short, I'll just say thank you to the commissioners who voted yes on this. I'm a father of a 1.5-year-old. I've lived in Wayne County my whole life. And I think for his future, this is going to be a great benefit as opposed to what it would be. So yeah, I would say that. And by the way, with those 17,000 signatures on the petition, I can say that I was one of those individuals that signed that blindly before going to a public hearing at the Livonia Library that was hosted by Save Heinz Park, and then further reached out to Khalil and the county and met with them and went over the plans, visited the properties, and I too, like many people have said, just seen dilapidated buildings. So I think this is the most positive and progressive way we can move forward. So thank you again, guys, for voting yes on that.
Thank you. Next card, please.
No additional cards.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Wayne County Commission? If so, please come to the microphone. You can line up.
Hi.
Go ahead.
I'm Jennifer Lancelati. I'm a local artist, and I feel like I have a very unique connection to Heinz Park. I'm there almost every day. I actually collect the sycamore and maple leaves in the fall in Heinz Park. So I am around the mill almost daily, especially in the fall, collecting leaves and painting them. So when I heard about this project, I felt like nothing is more important to a community than art. I'm with a lot of people on, I would never want to see condos or industry. I would want to see those buildings that I see every day restored. And I just want to thank you so much for your vote. You absolutely did the right thing. And these buildings are going to be restored. And I'm going to continue to be there for many, many years collecting my leaves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. Thank you, Commission and Commissioners, for your diligence in the research that you've done in listening to your constituents and each other's and the experts over the past year or so. I too grew up here in Wayne County and have enjoyed our county parks with my grandparents, with my parents, and now with my own son. And I'm an avid supporter of the arts, which I think our commissioner could attest to that. I'm excited about the opportunities for the mills going forward. It's been a shame that they have been neglected for so many years, and so I applaud you in taking the reins on this, and for the businesses that are interested in partnering, in purchasing the properties to bring arts and resources that our communities can continue to enjoy the parks even more fully going forward. That said, I know that you all take your jobs very seriously, as do I on Dearborn City Council, and we all hold the public's trust, and we all have difficult decisions that we have to make, and we go with our hearts and we go with the information that's before us. I just urge you to please proceed with caution in selling any future properties, and please to Plymouth and those who are going to be overseeing the development of the properties going forward, continue to keep an eye on what happens there, because again, as somebody said, once the property's gone from the public, it's gone. But we need to make sure that they live up to the promises that they've made with these wonderful developments that are ahead of us. Thank you.
Just give your name for the record.
I'm Leslie Herrick, City of Dearborn City Council member.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Craig. I've been trying to save Hines Park for 35 years with Jack Smiley, Sally Petrella, and other supporters of Save Hines Park. The work of Save Hines Park is not over. We had some involvement with Warren Valley Golf Course. We've had certainly involvement with these mills. These mills will be done. Those audiences will drop off. Save Hines Park will continue to steward Hines Park. I hope that we don't have to meet again on another parcel of property, and please stay away from Holiday Nature Preserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else, thank you all again for coming down here. I know it's difficult to get down here sometimes, so I appreciate everyone who took the time and felt it was important, because it is an important topic. So I thank you all for coming out and voicing your comments. Next item, please.
New business, there is none listed. We're moving to testimonial resolutions and certificates of appreciation. There are 8 items listed on pages 13 and 14 of the agenda.
There. Been moved by Commissioner Vice Chair Ware. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. This is for testimonial resolutions and certificates. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, please.
We are on page 15 of the agenda, memoriams. There are 5 names listed.
As was mentioned earlier, the sudden death of Mayor Kyle Stack of Trenton is so sad, so we want to make sure that we keep their family in our prayer. Also, someone that I remember working back in the McNamara days, Mr. Ed Tuggle, very dear person, great veteran, was always supportive of veteran activities. I want to lift his name up and keep his family in prayers as well. Vice Chair Pro Tem Ware, did you want to speak? About Tuggle? Okay. Any other comments?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to add to memoriams the passing of Margaret Rose from Westland. She had lived a very long life. She was 106 years old. She was someone that had taught school in the Wayne Westland District for many years, and she recently passed away. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Baydun?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Former Wayne County Safety Manager, Dr. Maria Abbas Saab, passed away early Tuesday morning after a month-long battle with pneumonia. Dr. Saab leaves behind her husband, Dr. Hassan Saab, and many of you will remember him. He was the former DPS director here in Wayne County. He retired in 2012. She's survived by her 3 children, Ali, Muhammad, and Sarah. Dr. Maria Saab spent 17 years working with the Wayne County. She started in 1995 and she retired in 2012. Funeral services will be held at the Islamic Center of America in Dearborn on Friday, December 6th from 5 to 8, and the commemoration service will be held on Sunday, December 8th at 3 p.m. Again, we extend our sincere condolences to my dear friend Hassan Saab and the entire family.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker McCormick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to say a few words about Edward Tuggle. He was a good friend and supporter. He was also a veteran and a real advocate in the community, making sure that elected officials are held accountable and just working hard in our community. So I just wanted to make sure I acknowledged him. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any additional names? Please stand. Moment of silence for those in memoriam. Thank you. Next item.
Reconsiderations,
There are none. Next item.
remarks by members.
Remarks by members. I have one. Was just informed that Rory Gamble has been named the full-time UAW president. His term will go to 2022. Our very own Rory Gamble. So we're very happy about that. Okay. Any commissioners for remarks? Commissioner Anderson?
I would like to add my congratulations, and I think that what you said is probably on behalf of everyone. I've known Rory since he was regional director, became regional director at 1A. He's a great man. He's a great man, great choice. On behalf of UAW that's seen some troubled times. As a UAW member myself, it's an honor to see him become the full-time president.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Clark Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, have known Rory over the years. He is a strong, dedicated member of the UAW. He fights for his members passionately. I have so much confidence in him. I know that he will take the UAW to another level, and he will do whatever is necessary to see that he meets that goal. So I couldn't be happier to hear that Rory has been made permanent president of the UAW.
Thank you, me too. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Roy Gamble or the UAW for having the good sight to make him the new president. I know that he will do a great job, and I'm just very, very glad that they chose him. And I also like to thank my colleagues for voting for this Hines Parks and the others.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. Under remarks by members, we can't speak on items that were on the agenda.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody for being here today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
I did hear, at the meeting, I did hear someone talk about the children would be from the city of Detroit, and that would be able to get involved in that. And I did mention it at the meeting.
Yes, ma'am, you did.
But I just wanted to reiterate that because we're going through so many turmoils in this country, I think that's a great idea to continue to bring all people together. And no better way than start with the children.
Thank you, Commissioner. And may I suggest that your meeting that starts in 2 minutes start at 12:15?
Yes, ma'am. I guess it has to. Yeah.
Just to give people an opportunity to have a recess. And okay, thank you, Commissioner Varga.
Thank you. I'm sure you're going to send a congratulatory letter.
Yes.
Would you include all of us on it? Thank you.
Absolutely. I will. Thank you. More remarks by members? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, thank you all. Do you want me to bring it up?
Yep.